Cody's just been making fun of me for having a spa inside my house. It is a unique room here in
It
Boulder.
is.
My house is very log cabiny, and I do live in the mountains, so it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely, you step right out your door and you're in a forest, basically.
Yeah, Cody was here last week. We just taught a retreat together in Boulder. We had maybe like about 40 students. It's a beautiful group where we did energy work for the weekend. Friday night, we opened it up to the public. We had a wonderful showing, and everyone who showed up got an energy reading, or two actually, which was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it
That
was
was a
very
fun
cool.
experience. Yeah. Um, and then we took all the teachers from the Energy Matters Academy. We went up to the mountains for a few nights, and we all got sick. All got a cold,
We still
and
had fun, but we did all have a cold.
and we were up at elevation. It was almost 7,700 feet, so it was hard to breathe. It was a good time though.
Yeah.
All right, welcome everybody. So this is a new series me and Cody are doing. We're going to be teaching a free live monthly class. Maybe we'll have some guest teachers on occasion. And what our goal here is twofold. One is we want to turn the first part of these talks into podcast episodes so that we can share with everybody. And then we're going to do a meditation as well. And that's just going to be for anyone who's on our newsletter list and who's on our free memberships. So, and if you're here, you're already in. Anyone on our email list will get the replay of the entire thing. And so, what we wanted to do was create an opportunity to talk about energy and also do some energy work together. So we will be meditating today. And if you can't sit for the meditation, or you're busy, or you want to listen again, you can go back and listen to the replay as much as you like. And not everyone got to come to Boulder, Colorado and do energy work with us in person. So we want to make this available and free to anyone and everyone who's interested, which apparently is a lot of people, Cody. We had over 1,300 people sign up for this class today. Oh,
Yes.
they must all like you. You're a very popular
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. So everybody will get the download for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that black shirt you got. It's snazzy, and that
Yeah.
salt lamp.
Yeah.
So, the topic for today is energetic intelligence, and we want to talk a bit about what that means, what it means to be a spiritual being in a physical body, have spiritual abilities, open up to energy work, maybe share a few stories around our own experiences as teachers and just people in the world, and then do a meditation on maybe learning to see energetically what some of your purpose is while you're here on this planet. Because I know for me as a teacher, as spending years doing one-on-one work with students, everybody is always looking for that next step, looking for that purpose. Why am I on this planet? Why do I have annoying family members? Why am I in pain? Why am I suffering? What's the next part of my journey here that I want to create? And when we do energy work like this, our goal is to learn how to find and see those answers for ourselves through meditation, not just intellectualizing or asking somebody else to give us those answers, but really learning the energy tools to be able to close our physical eyes and start to find and see our own answers. And so that's what me and Cody want to talk about today, and then guide you in a meditation through. So I'm pretty excited to get going and to be part of this series. So me and Cody have been teaching together for about 10 years, I would say. Had the Energy Matters Academy going for at least 8.
Yeah. It's at least 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a
I think
beautiful
we
group of
met.
teachers too,
Gosh, it's
alongside
been
of
over
us.
15 years since we met and started working together in various ways. But in terms of opening the Energy Matters Academy, it's been about 9 years. Yeah.
Yeah, we really wanted to create a place where people could come and learn energy tools, learn how to find their own answers, and have a good time and laugh at Cody while we do it.
Yeah.
You know,
And laugh at David every once in a while.
anytime you want. Cody, I was thinking of this story this morning. When I was, I don't know, 24-ish, I was traveling in India. I had a girlfriend at the time, and we were on a bus, and we were going up into the Himalayas, and we're sitting in the back of this bus, and this guy keeps grabbing her. It happens in India.
What?
unfortunately. Yeah. And I turned to the dude. I was like, "Hey, don't touch her." And he was like, "No, no, 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 I'm not touching her." I'm like, okay. And then she whispers, "Hey, he did it again." I'm like, "Dude, do not touch her." And now my jersey's side
Oh.
is starting to get angry. My ice hockey playing jersey, David is like, "Oh, I'm gonna whoop his ass." And then he does it again. She tells me, and then at this point, I I close my eyes. I just put my head on the seat in front of me. We're sitting in the back of a public bus, so it's 100 solid plus people crammed on an Indian bus on a hot day. We're in the back row. It is like 5 seats across, and I just have this fantasy. I don't know if I ever told you the story. I have this fantasy where I turn to the guy. Was embarrassed to say it, and I'm like, and I say, "I'm in the army, and I'm gonna kick your ass." I don't know. I just have this fantasy, right? And then a moment later, the bus driver hits the brakes. I hit my head on the seat in front of me. There's like, "Ow!" I open my eyes. We had stopped at some stop. I couldn't see out the windows. It was too many people. And an army guy, an Indian army guy, Sikh guy, he had a turban on, huge dude, must have been like solid 6'3", 6'4", gets on the bus with his
Wow.
huge machine gun in his army uniform. He walks straight to the back of the bus without saying a word to anyone or stopping. He picks up the guy who had been grabbing her, just physically picks him up, shakes him down, looks through all this stuff, never throws him back in his seat, never says a word, turns around, walks off the bus. The bus keeps driving. And I look at her and I was like, "You don't even know what just happened." And he never bothered us again. And it was just like one of those moments where I was like, "Did I manifest that? Was that coming? What the hell just happened right there?" Obviously it manifested as me saying something to him, like in my mind's eye, like I'm in the army. But the reality was, it was like this picture of like some army guy getting this dude to, contain himself and keep his hands to himself. And it was like I saw that vision in my mind. I interpreted it in my own way. And then within seconds, literally 30 seconds of me having the vision, it happened. And then the rest of the bus drive, the guy never touched her again. And
I
so,
love that. I've never heard that story.
yeah,
That's
wouldn't
such
that
a
be?
great thing, though, because so often we get a vision and then we think we have to do something versus just kind of align with what the energy that's going to happen that's going to take care of it. And you ultimately didn't have to do anything. You
Yeah,
didn't have to hit the guy.
not that I would have anyway, but
No, but
at the time I didn't really have energy tools. I was just starting to learn, and looking back now, I could see more clearly what happened. But back then, it just had this kind of raw intuition that didn't have any refinement. And so a lot
yeah.
of people, when they find out we teach this stuff, I know this happens to you too, they'll come up to you and they'll tell you about a dream they had that came true or an intuition that they had that came true. But rarely does someone come up and say, "Hey, I have energy tools and structure, and I know how to use my intuition in a very practical way every single day to make decisions, to see energy, to take action." Usually it's, "Oh, you teach this stuff? Well, one time this crazy thing happened to me on a bus in India,"
Right.
or whatever. Um, and most people don't realize that you can actually learn how to manage these abilities and create structure around them, make them replicable, and use them in a very practical, consistent way. And I think that's where maybe we come in as teachers and what the
Hmm.
academy is for and what we like to teach. And so it doesn't have to be once every 5 or 10 years you have this explosive intuitive experience that's just like jaw dropping, but then afterwards you don't really know what to do with it. Um, I
Yeah.
remember,
Usually
yeah,
it's
yeah,
usually it's very random and it's sometimes there's not a broader context to put it in, so it doesn't make sense until after the fact. And it's not something that you can make happen. It's just something that is happening, in the midst of a broader world that seems random at times and uncertain. But when you can learn how to connect with your energy and be guided by it, suddenly everything shifts. It directs your path or your focus of your energy. things do seem a little less random and a little less out of control. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and then we get to decision making. I had a student once come to me and say, when I met my ex-husband at the time, I had this just pang of intuition in my gut, like, this is the wrong guy, don't do it. And I didn't listen. 2 kids later, divorce, complete chaos, mess, pain, suffering. I finally listened to my intuition. And so sometimes it's there in the beginning, but we don't know how to listen to it. We don't know, like, is this real? Is this just me being afraid? Is this somebody else's idea of what I should or shouldn't do? And then we learn the hard way, which is we don't listen, and then we have to go through a whole sequence of events that are really painful and spin us out sometimes for years until we go, okay, I have to learn how to listen. And that's a
Yeah.
big part of it as well.
That that's a big step going from hearing the intuition to acting on it or listening to the intuition. And just because you have this kind of energetic intelligence that comes through and you have the intuition of what you need to do, it doesn't mean that's the easiest step. The intuition is not necessarily moving you along the path of least resistance. So for in that story for that woman, perhaps the path of least resistance was actually just going through with getting married, but her intuition told her a different path, which was actually maybe harder at the time. So
Mm,
we have to kind of work with being connected with our intuition or our energetic intelligence in such a way that we start to trust it and start to get validation that it's real so that we can act on it and follow it more frequently. But it tends to not lead us astray. Yeah,
learning to listen. Usually we have to get beat up over upside the head
a
many,
few
many,
times.
many times.
Okay, many times. Yeah, I was
If you're
working with
slow like
someone
me.
yesterday. There's this kind of energetic or this picture we might get about what we should be doing and what our purpose is. And I was working with someone yesterday who his purpose really is to teach ultimately, and he's in this kind of notion that he's should be teaching, but every time he moves towards teaching, he has a healing crisis and things fall apart in his life. And so what really came out of our conversation and working with him was that yes, he's ultimately in a kind of path to be a teacher, but where he is right now in himself is in a healing process, and that's really what needs his attention first before he can evolve into his ultimate path. So I think you were mentioning earlier, David, kind of about all the different questions we might have and answers, kind of why am I here? Why am I, why is this happening? Why are these people in my life? What's my purpose? There's also a question that we need to answer, which is kind of where am I right now in my process, in my path? How do I honor what I need right now? Kind of following the intuitive or energetic intelligence within versus where I want to be ultimately, that's still there. But we really had to kind of shift his focus to everything had to be kind of looked through the lens of where am I in my own healing process, not as a teacher, because he was kind of left in a position then of either or. Well, either I be a teacher or not. And it was just one or the other. And when we're more deeply informed by our kind of intuitive information and that energetic intelligence, then we get a different answer. We get kind of a third option, which is what are the steps I need to take in this case to get to becoming that teacher I want to be. And for him, it's a healing journey in the moment. And so we kind
Mm,
of reset his vision and what he was connecting with, his answers started to come out of, okay, well, what's really my healing question for me to get towards that greater purpose? So there's lots of a broad need of information that we start to get our answers when we connect with this energetic intelligence within. Yeah.
during the Boulder retreat when we had our Friday night open house, I shared this story, and not everyone got to physically be there, so I'll share it again. But I was working with one of our other teachers in the academy, Marjorie, who's an amazing teacher, and this was many years ago, and she was living in Venezuela. And we were doing some work together, and I said, "Man, that country looks like it's going to collapse, and I think you should move." And I see thousands of students. I see so many people waiting to learn from you. If you could just get out from underneath that energy. And within days, maybe weeks, could have been just days, she picked up her husband and her son and a daughter, and they moved to the US. Luckily, they were able to. Her husband's American. And not long after they got to the US, she taught a class online and had over 13,000 students show up to her class. And it was like, at that moment, it was so clear to me, just working with her. You have all of this potential. There's just this shift of energy. It looks like your body doesn't feel safe where it is, and moving is going to open up a whole new door to your teaching world. And that, fortunately, she listened to me, Cody. No, she listened
Yes.
to herself and made that shift. And to this day, has been teaching so many thousands of students and doing an incredible job. Um, Sometimes all we need is that, like, hello from somebody else. Like, hey, I see you on the brink of a shift. Maybe, yeah, like you were saying with the guy who wants to be a teacher, maybe your next step isn't being a teacher, it might be healing yourself. Eventually, it might be being a teacher. But a good
Hmm.
energy worker is, or a healer or guide, is always helping you shift your energy into that next step. Maybe not always into the ultimate vision or goal, but it's that next step that's important. And I've always found a difference between people who are willing to grind it out and always go for the next step, and those who are just kind of pie in the sky, wanting their big vision and aren't willing to do anything till they get it. And there's a maturity in going, I will crawl up this mountain on my hands and knees, uh, one step at a time, even if it's 10,000 steps, to get to this vision, and do whatever work is necessary, work through pain, suffering, whatever it is, to get it. And then there's people who are like, they just want it. I want it now. I don't want to do the work. I don't want to sit still, whatever it is. And then they spin. Sometimes they kind
Yeah.
of spin for a long time.
Or we end up in a place of waiting. So if you're not seeing that next step, if you just see that big uh, purpose that you want to have arrive, then what can you do but just wait? And really being connected with this dynamic intuition that gives you answers and working with just the next step ultimately gets you to that goal. But it really is always down to what's the next step? Where am I and what do I need to work on? And getting that information from that intuitive part of us, I think, is really a deep connection with the self. And new things open up and new ideas come and new information. Where if we're just kind of analyzing it, it tends to loop around just in the same old thing over and over.
Sometimes for years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Or I just need to change everyone around me and then I'll get it. I had a, I had a friend once.
That could take years.
I could take some years. I had a friend once who, um, she had a boyfriend, and one day she said, David, I need you to take him, get him a healing, get his ex-wife's energy out of his space, and so he can create with me. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. And so I guess he went to, an energy worker person that, somebody that I knew for one session, and comes back the same person. And she, and, he had been married for 30 years. He was pretty stuck. He wasn't shifting in 1 hour. And she came to me and she goes, David, he is the same person. He hasn't shifted. Why didn't your healers fix him? I was like, well, it usually takes more than 1 hour, more than one session in any area of life to heal yourself and start to shift your energy. And if he's been in one energy for 30 years, there's no miracle that's going to pull him out of that fast. And she was a wealthier person, and she was like, no, now I want it now, David. Fix him right now. And you could probably predict that relationship didn't last more than a couple more months until she just kept pushing on him to shift and he couldn't. And then she just threw the baby out with the bathwater and moved on. But I remember going, where did she get this concept that some energy healer is just going to fix her partner and then he's going to be fine in a couple hours and then she's going to get everything she wants? And what I realized was, oh, that was her approach to everything in life. I'm just going to pay for what I want. I want to get it right now. I don't actually want to do the work that it's going to take. And so a lot of the work was in her court, not just in his court. And it was just her going, just change the person around me, then I'll be happy and get what I want. And I was only probably like 25 at the time and a little new to this. And I was like, what is happening? This is wild. She wants us to fix this dude so she could be happy in like 10 minutes. And I just remember going, there's something wrong here. I don't know what it is yet. I'm still growing up, but something here ain't right.
Something ain't working. Yeah, you can buy a lot of things, but spiritual growth is not one of them.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Changing the person, not one of them. Yeah.
When I was living in India, I went to an ashram, and I remember it was like the brother of the guru of this ashram was selling this thing he called enlightenment in 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you got two. You just pay a bunch of money, and in 2 weeks, you got it.
You're
And
enlightened.
I've seen other teachers do that too, like enlightenment weekend. By the end of the weekend, you're gonna get it. And there's like a almost like an intensity that comes with that. You're gonna push through. And really, with any good energy work, it takes years. It takes thousands of hours. It takes lots and lots of meditating and practice and guidance and doing it in a safe, consistent way. And I've never actually seen a shortcut ever, ever work. Yes, you can get
You
a
can't really
hello,
hack
but
spirituality. Yeah.
it'd be good. Should we sell third eye patches? Just pop them right here,
Right.
just like a
Yeah.
nicotine pack for your third eye.
Just for your third eye enlightenment, just the little patch that releases something. Yeah. Just reminds you you have a third eye.
It just
Uh,
yeah. I
yeah,
think
it energy working and this kind of connection with oneself really is a journey. It's not that it takes thousands of hours for things to start to happen, but it takes a lot of connection and work through meditation and shifting one's awareness to be able to have access to that information when things get real, when it becomes difficult, when it's stressful, so that we don't just fall back into old patterns and old ways of being. So it is this process of deepening and developing and strengthening this part of oneself. And it starts to have effect in your day-to-day life right away, but over time you grow in it and it builds and you get more and more answers. You broaden your awareness. It really is a growth process that we teach. It's not a intensive weekend fix. And even we just came out of a weekend retreat, which on one level is intensive, but on another level, it's just getting together and having a lot of fun and validating this level of connection with oneself, with spirit, and making that connection with other people and creating more growth out of that kind of shortened amount of time, but really supporting the notion that it's a journey and a path that you're on and you're growing in that your whole life, really.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and probably the older I get, the less tolerance or patience I have for the students who are like, give it to me right now. I want it. How much is it going to cost?
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh no, that's not going to go well.
Yeah, you start to really see that kind of attitude or that mindset relative to it isn't going to get you anywhere. So it's kind of a wasted effort. But if you start to learn how to go within and connect with this part of yourself and you start to do it a little bit every day, miracles do happen. things align. The army guy shows up and shakes down the harasser just randomly.
Don't even have to do anything. Just sit
You
there on
don't
the
even have to
bus.
do anything. Yeah.
That was a pretty great moment.
That's pretty wild.
I remember I had a student who I was doing a session with him and I said, this is a weird picture, but the picture is like a family is inside of this house and then there's some kind of fire and everyone has to run out and they lose their home. And he goes, I can't believe, he's like, David, I can't believe you just effing said that. Me and my whole family just had to leave our house because it was full of like mold or it was something like mold. And we literally had to just run out of the house and we're living out of a hotel. And he was so validated that I could see what he was going through. And so, all right, we're off to a great start, like validated that this is what's happening in your life. But then every time we have a subsequent call, there would be another problem. And it was the landlord's fault. Then it was the mortgage company. Then it was the remediation company. Then it was the rental property they were in and the owner of the rental property. And I realized every time we met that the student found another reason that somebody else was doing it to him. And that initial thing when we worked on it, it was like he was being this victim, like life was doing it to him. He's a victim. It's all happening to him and his family. And then every subsequent call, it was always a new perpetrator. And it was always a new reason to be angry with somebody. And he wanted me as the energy worker to fix it. Like I was going to do a spell or do something to the people that were doing it to him. And I remember, Cody, I just kept trying to reiterate, listen, on some level, you just keep attracting this and you're in what we would call a victim mentality. Everyone is always doing it to you. And you've got to come out of that image, that picture that everyone is doing it to you and start taking some responsibility. Oh, did he explode on me and not like that? Never heard from him again.
Yeah,
and
no one
I,
wants to hear that. But
yeah,
there's some real truth in that because it's not that things don't happen and we can't kind of be victimized, but it's that through that mentality, you can't get a clear answer of what your next step is. You're putting it on something else out there all the time. And when you reconnect with yourself and take responsibility, you can see a path forward. So it's not a question necessarily of solving the past. It's the question is, what's my path forward to get back in alignment, to get back on my purpose, to get my creativity back, to get my power back? There's all of these questions we're always kind of asking and looking for. And from a place of connection with our energetic intelligence, we can get an answer toward that. And in the victim mentality, we're not in that place. That's not where this connection resides within us. Yeah.
so I'd love to take a minute, talk about this topic, and then do a meditation.
Yeah.
Have you guide us. This is where most people have their questions and where they get stuck is, which is, how do I find my own answers? How do I start to see energy and find my own real answers to this stuff? That is where the rubber really hits the road and where most of the work needs to be done. Um, and so this is where I find myself working a lot with students, helping them learn the tools that they need to be able to start to see and find their own answers. And in that process, work on their energy. So when somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, I'm super stuck, I just don't know what my next step is. The first step is always to sit and meditate on the stuckness. And that's what you look at. So students will always say, I can't see anything, David. I can't see. Oh, I'm stuck. Okay, what does stuckness look like when you close your eyes? Well, I can't see. Well, what would it look like? It's gray. All right. You're already seeing it's gray. How's it shaped? Like a cloud. Where is it? Sitting on the front of my head. That's a lot of information. So whenever someone says they can't see, what they're really saying is they can't see what they want to see right now, which is the shiny object, their ultimate answer that they're going for. Is this my soulmate? Is this my perfect career? Should I move to wherever, Scandinavia, right? It's like yes, you can't see that, but can you see the anxiety that is building up around your question? What does the anxiety look like? Well, it looks like a field of weird gobbly gop that's purple. All right. Now you see anxiety. That's how you actually start to see energy. So for most people, the energy when you're learning to see is pain, some shape or form of resistance and or pain. That is the first thing we see. I can't see anything. I keep going unconscious. Okay, what does the unconscious look like? It's like a black cloud of heaviness. That's progress. And people don't realize that is progress. That's where the work begins. So, for example, and if anyone wants to write a question that you have a hard time getting an answer to in the chat, if you're here live, I'll use it as an example. Something that you just can't seem to find an answer about. Just type it in the chat. Could be me and Cody could workshop it with you, and Cody will give you your answer. So I can't see is always the first thing. I cannot see. Well, what does it look like? What's that resistance you're in? I'm in so much when I don't have my answer, I get angry. Okay. So what does that anger look like? That's how we always start. So no matter what your question is, and you're like, no, David, I'm truly the person that can't see. Everyone else is faking it. Okay, maybe you've given up. Yes, I have given up. Well, what does the energy of giving up look like? What color is it? What's the temperature of it? What's the density? What's the shape? Is it on your shoulders, on your head? Is it stuck up your ass? What is the energy of I have given up? Read it to me. There's no energy in my all my years of experience. There's no energy that is infinitely dense and impossible to move. I've never met a single person that was incapable of truly becoming aware of energy and moving some energy. So, no, I can't see. I've given up. Great. Okay, what color is that? It's like a dark brown and it's on my chest. Great. How dense is it? It's like a rock. All right. How heavy is it? Feels like 1,000 pounds. I mean, that's already enormous progress. Now let's ask it what it's sitting on top of. And then that's when we start getting somewhere. Oh, grief. There's enormous grief that life didn't work out the way I wanted it to work out. Okay, now we're really on to something. And that's how we start peeling back the layers. And if I was doing a reading on somebody, that's probably how the reading would go too. If somebody
Right.
came super stuck, I might be like, wow, you look really stuck. And they're like, well, I already know that. Yeah, great. Well, that's where you are. I'm not going to start you in some fantasy place. You're stuck. All right. It looks like a big gray cloud all over you. Now let's start to unpack some of that and peel the layers back. And that's where 90% of the work is. The really sexy, like, I'm going to get my ultimate answer. That's way down the line for most people. Um, but this is the process. So you can learn to see this stuff inside yourself as a meditator with your sixth chakra, your third eye, your mind's eye, whatever you want to call it. And you can also, if you so choose, learn to look at that in other people. And then maybe you become a guide and you help others. And it's a really, really cool ability. So that's the foundation, really, of the work I think that we do and how to find your own answers and how to start to work energy. And it's not intellectual, it's not something that we're just thinking up. There's a difference between thinking about something and really seeing the energy. And most people just have no experience in seeing energy. This muscle is in complete atrophy. It's like jello with it's trying to bench press. And the muscle is just an atrophy. And it's in the beginning, it's difficult, but you can build this muscle and you can learn how to start to see energy. Yeah. How do you
Yeah, I think very
know? Oh,
often,
go ahead. And then I'll ask
well,
this
very
question.
often we get caught in trying to figure it out, and becomes this loop. And it's very easy when we're trying to figure it out, everything gets reduced down to kind of either or type scenarios. It's one or the other. Um, and when we move into this intuitive awareness and we're looking from there, suddenly things broaden and there's a third way. There's a different option that we can see from there. So moving into energy awareness, and I think partly what I hear you saying, David, is in this notion that I can't see, there's kind of this picture that um, doesn't really open up to the idea that everything is energy. You look at everything, even stuckness is an energy. And we get kind of caught in these mental traps where all these different things are a reality versus energy that we can work on and move through and get a different answer and a different path forward.
Even
And
even
it's it
emptiness is an
even
energy.
emptiness is an energy, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny you had that great kind of example of someone being stuck and you just read the stuckness. I've also had people come to me who they think they're stuck, but they're not stuck per se. The thing they're stuck on is that they're trying to be something they're not. So they're trying to fulfill someone else's picture about what they should be doing in life. So now they're simply stuck on that. But if you kind of say hello to that and they clear that notion that that's what they have to do, suddenly this opens up in them kind of what they really want to be doing, and they're not stuck in that part. Like suddenly they can get excited. Suddenly they have new ideas come into their awareness because what they really was stuck on was someone else's picture of what would be the right thing for them. And they have this other intuition that really guides them more towards their path. So sometimes we're just stuck following what isn't our path. And once that gets illuminated, suddenly we can shift and we really aren't that as stuck as we think we are. So
And somebody
that
was
can happen
asking,
as well.
yeah, someone was asking, how do you know what questions to ask yourself? Well, it depends what kind of clarity you're looking for. So, what is keeping me stuck? Why do I feel low energy? How come I can't seem to see my own answers? You could ask any of those questions and then sit still and see what starts to arise. And then you go, nothing arises. I'm just freaking angry. Well, that's something that's arising. Or I just want to give up. Well, that's something that's arising. Or I'm always confused. I don't even know what question to ask, David. I'm confused about which questions to ask. Okay, so you're confused. So that's where we start. What does confusion look like inside of you? Where is it arising? What is giving the confusion fuel? Did you adopt this confusion from the world? Is the confusion coming out of some deeper level of pain? So that's where we start. I feel absolutely nothing. Great. What does absolutely nothingness look like? Even that's an energy, right? Or I'm just disinterested in life. Okay, that's called apathy. What does apathy look like? I've been spinning in circles for a decade, David. No energy worker or healer on the planet can help me. Wow, that's called resistance. Okay. Yeah. What does that look like? So, no matter what it is, there's always, always, always an energy. Always. Somebody said sometimes they come to the wrong conclusions. Yeah, well, conclusions could be very intellectual. So we're not here necessarily to come to conclusions. We're here to work on energy. So what is the next level? What is the next layer of energy? Yeah. Somebody wrote, I'm stuck with creativity, wanting to do some songwriting. I get started and then I kill the idea. Uh, I think there could be fear. Well, if you're telling us, then yeah,
There
sounds like
probably
there's
is. Yeah.
there's probably fear or self-sabotage, right? So what is it in you that's afraid of moving forward that stops the process? That's what I would sit with, and I would start to look at what that energy is, what it's made from, and where it comes from. Yeah. Great question. Can you speak a little bit more on the distinction between being stuck and being in a waiting period? Um, I don't know about being in a waiting period, if that's a real thing. I'd have to explore why you believe that you might be in a waiting period. Now, not everything comes to fruition at once, obviously, but I don't know about this concept of being in a waiting period. That sounds like some kind of deferment of actually working energy. So right now, always there's an opportunity to work some energy. So is there resistance to not getting what you want? That might be where I would start. I didn't get what I want. I'm in a quote unquote waiting period, but really there's resistance to not creating what it is that you're looking for. And that's what I would focus on. Where is that
Yeah, I
resistance
think
coming from?
there's always a next step we can take. So there's never a place where
Yeah.
we're being stuck in a waiting period. We can be waiting on something, but that doesn't necessarily get us there. So there's always coming back to kind of present time and what's my next step, even though the bigger thing might not come to fruition for a while. That you can't wait on the next thing, because ultimately maybe you're having to move yourself toward that next thing, become the person that can embody that. And so there's always a next step to take.
And maybe the next step is being in the energy of patience. That could be a step.
Sure.
And if you're like, I'm very patient, well, then you're not patient. Right? Proof is always in the pudding. Great questions,
Right.
everybody. You said,
Yeah.
let's
Good
see,
questions.
next level of energy is needed instead of drawing conclusions, which is intellectual. Yeah. Drawing conclusion would be like, okay, I've worked some energy, I figured it out. This is the thing. In energy work, that may not happen or for a long time. So for example, you're like, all right, I want to understand this old relationship dynamic. All right, I've come to a conclusion. This was the dynamic. Well, maybe that's just one layer of 1,000. And so the ego wants to grab onto a conclusion. Egos love conclusions. All right. Egos love conclusions. In energy work, we're always working the next layer. So you might get let's call it an insight, like, oh, I see part of the dynamic, but that might not be the end all be all conclusion to anything. That's just the next layer of energy that you're working on. Oh, I attracted a partner who I was healing the crap out of them, right? I found someone in pain that I could fix, and I lost myself in that. All right, is that the ultimate conclusion? No, that's an insight. Now we're working on the energy of why I created that in the first place, right? Working through some of those beliefs and patterns, maybe lack of self-worth. And then there's probably another piece and another piece and another piece. So, yeah, our ego wants a conclusion, like a final chapter, but it's just another layer of energy on the path. Um,
Yeah.
so that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very often, our like what's between us and our next step to that broader insight or vision, or that next one, is letting go of that conclusion that we made earlier, that this is the way things are, and really looking and seeing, well, what do I see now? What's the insight now to move forward and let go of this? So a lot of times the meditative journey is about letting go of old things more than getting more and more new information. We have to kind of let ourselves step out of whatever is stuck, or whatever ideas we hold that kind of have it solidified into, well, this is the way it is, and this is the conclusion, and opening up to seeing a new way, and a new answer. So, and that's growth. That's growth. It's not that you were wrong in what you're letting go. It's that you've stepped into a new way of seeing things. You're able to see it more in depth, or from a different angle, or beyond just that one conclusion.
Mm.
And that's why it takes a practice. It takes a little time.